We are going to go on to our next speaker. Next speaker is none other than my very efficient co-moderator, Dr. Pravin Krishna, who's going to talk on phakic IOLs in keratoconus.
Thanks, Chitra, and thanks to everyone for the wonderful discussion, and thanks to the ARC and especially to Chitra for having me on this panel. So I'm going to be speaking in the next 5 minutes or so about phakic IOLs in keratoconus, and the questions that I hope to answer in the next 5 minutes would be: do phakic IOLs actually work for patients who have keratoconus? What kind of keratoconus do they work best in? How is planning for phakic IOLs different in keratoconus from a routine patient? And a little bit about the outcomes of these surgeries. So typically, if you look at the surgical options for a patient who has keratoconus, they're divided into either stabilizing surgeries or vision correction surgeries. So stabilizing, of course, is collagen cross-linking. Vision correction, you can broadly divide them into implants and transplants. And among implants is where phakic IOL actually fits in. And of course, we're not going to be talking about the other kinds of surgery today. So a little bit of literature just to drive home the point about whether phakic IOLs work for keratoconus or not, and what kind of keratoconus they work in. Most case series that are available, that are published, are small case series, less than 20 patients. And that itself will tell you that this is not a very commonly performed procedure. But if you look at the corrected distance visual acuity of patients who have undergone phakic IOLs in patients who have keratoconus, all of these actually are patients who have relatively good spectacle corrected visual acuity. And if you look at the refraction, most of them are people who have very high myopia and relatively lower astigmatism if you consider that all of these are keratoconus patients. If you also look at the uncorrected distance visual acuity of patients, you'll also notice that all of them are not 20/20, but they probably mirror the kind of visual acuity they had with spectacles before surgery. And if you look at the topography K readings, you'll see that most of these are mild to moderate keratoconus and not severe keratoconus. That was about the artisan phakic lenses. There also are smaller case series with the posterior chamber phakic IOLs like the ICL, and the accuracy of these lenses, if you will see, seem to be a little lesser in keratoconus as you would expect compared to normal patients. But what is also important is the fact that these tend to be quite stable. The refractive error is quite stable over a 3-year period. But digging a little deeper into all of this is if you look at the kind of patients that have been operated. The average age of patients operated for an ICL are patients who are closer to 40 years, patients who have a higher spherical equivalent and a relatively lower cylinder again for a keratoconus patient, and patients where the best spectacle corrected visual acuity is actually very good. So that's the typical patient who seems to do very well with a phakic IOL. And also, if you look at the mean K readings, you'll see that the highest K reading in this series was 52 diopters. So again, mild to moderate keratoconus. And if you look at the central corneal thickness, 500 microns again, which also tells you that this is not advanced keratoconus. Which kind of phakic IOL? It seems that the iris claw as well as the posterior chamber IOLs tend to do equally well in cases of keratoconus, with the posterior chamber IOLs doing a slightly better job than the iris claw lenses. So what are the variables that will be different in a patient with keratoconus compared to a normal patient? The 5 variables that we typically pay attention to in anybody whom we are planning phakic IOL calculations. Number 1 is the refraction. Well, what is interesting to see that is in patients with keratoconus, the variability in refraction, if you do refraction 2 times by the same person, is extremely high. And so that is another problem, because this is what you're basing the ordering of the power of your phakic IOL on. So you can expect greater variability in the outcomes because of the fact that the measured refraction by itself, both sphere as well as cylinder, tends to be more variable in keratoconus patients. Keratometry, again, though not of fundamental importance in phakic IOL planning and calculations, is important to also know and correlate the kind of cylinder that you have. And if you have an eccentric cone because it is measured in the center, again, this could be erroneous. What is interesting is the anterior chamber depth measurements. And here is a very nice example that will show you that in patients with keratoconus, typically the anterior chamber depth in the center is deeper because of the cone. But this does not reflect the depth of the peripheral anterior chamber. So in patients who have normal eyes without keratoconus, the depth of the central anterior chamber tends to sort of be a surrogate measure for the depth of the peripheral anterior chamber as well, which tends to be deeper, especially in myopes. So if you do a phakic IOL using the regular calculations in a keratoconus patients, it is more likely that you will end up with a shallower anterior chamber and a higher vault as compared to a normal patient. Again, I don't have evidence to show this, but this is an anecdotal observation amongst the series of keratoconus patients that we have. The other important thing is the white to white distance probably doesn't really matter here, but in some patients who had allergy and limbal papillae, taking the measurements from your automatic tools like your OBSCAN will be erroneous. So it's always important to ensure that you measure manually as well. And the last variable is the endothelial cell count. Again, what is interesting is keratoconus patients typically tend to have a lower endothelial cell count than normal patients. And this tends to become lower and lower as the severity of the keratoconus increases as well, because endothelial cells have a larger surface area to cover in a patient who has ectasia. So a case example, this is a 35-year-old lady whom we followed for 5 years who had stable topography and refraction, minus 13, minus 1.5, minus 14, minus 3. And she underwent a phakic IOL post-op 1 month. She did very well with a slight residual error of a minus 1.25 cylinder in both eyes, 2025, and she was quite happy. As you can see, the vault is a little higher than what you would expect in a normal ICL patient. Post-op 1 year, she is also stable again with the visual acuity as well as the best corrected vision maintained with a slight drop in the left eye. We've looked at our data and we have about 19 eyes of patients who underwent ICL or any other phakic IOL for keratoconus with a mean age of around 30 years. So you'll see that this is an older subgroup of patients who tend to be more stable. Average pre-op sphere is minus 11. Average pre-op cylinder was minus 2. And you'll see again, this also shows you that most patients are patients with central cones or patients who have a mild to moderate keratoconus. So to summarize, what we found in patients who have keratoconus who undergo a phakic IOL, ensure that you explain that the patient is going to have a larger residual error range and not to expect uncorrected visual acuity of 20 by 20 or even no refractive error after surgery. Ensure that you look for stable refraction and keratometry. This could be variable depending on the age of the patient and the kind of keratoconus, but what is suggested in literature is 2 years. 2 years is a very long time, and probably 6 months to 1 year probably would be a more rational time that you look for stability. Ensure that you have good spectacle corrected visual acuity, because visual acuity with the contact lens is never going to be replicated by a phakic IOL in the eye. And also explain to the patient that they will get what they are seeing with spectacles or maybe just one line better than that. Always try to limit this to mild to moderate keratoconus, because predictability goes down as your K becomes higher and as your cornea becomes more eccentric as well. And if you have a patient who's progressing, ensure that you do a collagen cross-linking to stabilize the keratometry on the cornea. Once you're happy with the stability, you can go ahead with a phakic IOL. The other thing that is also helpful is to combine procedures, combine and use an intracorneal ring segment to improve best spectacle corrected visual acuity before you plan a phakic IOL. And the ideal time between these two procedures should be at least about 6 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pravin. That was a very good talk. Anybody in the panel have a question for him?
Just one point I would like to add, that what Praveen told, the last point, like combining ICRS. Some of the keratoconus patients, what I have experienced, a few of the patients who had high astigmatism. So I've used a single segment of intracorneal ring segment to reduce the astigmatism, and then I've gone with I'm combined CXL with the ICRS, and then later on, after 6 months, went ahead with the ICL. So in those cases, it is good to combine, but most of these keratoconus cases have high astigmatism, so a single segment will be a good option in such cases.
I would just like to emphasize a point which Praveen already made, in the sense that if you don't have tools to all this and don't understand everything, please go purely by spectacle corrected visual acuity, because your ICL or phakic intraocular lens is only going to correct refractive error. It's not going to do anything to corneal aberrations or corneal irregularity. So if they are happy with their spectacles, please go ahead and try phakic intraocular lenses. But if they need contact lenses, rigid gas permeable or rose-scale lenses for scleral lenses for correcting their refractive error, then they are not good candidates for phakic intraocular lenses.
Thank
I
you.
just had one point that basically how long, see, Pravin says you can wait up till 2 years, but many of these patients, after cross-linking, they have a lot of disability in the sense that they have to wear the contact lenses. With the glasses, the vision is not, again, good, or they have a very high power. So I generally wait for 3 to 6 months and then do the ICL, because after that, the change is not much. Because if you keep waiting, sometimes you have progressive flattening also, and the flattening can occur even up till 6 years, 7 years. So the refraction again keeps changing in keratoconus. So every time a person refracts, there is a little bit of variation. And it is difficult to get an accurate refraction also with keratoconus. So these are the problems. And generally, the patients want to overcome their disability of the high refraction. So 3 to 6 months, but I tell them that there can be mild changes, but they're okay with it.
Please, also a difference
Paucity of
between
time.